Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Dominic Tanchico from ESME Philippines, and such a nice day today, right? So before we begin, if you have any questions regarding this discussion for today, don't hesitate to send them to us by entering it in the comment section of whatever social media platform you're watching this on, and I will be here to cater it for you to our guest speaker of today. Welcome to the youth series of ESME.ph, an e-learning marketplace for Filipino professionals where one can develop relevant and in-demand skills through masterclasses in different fields of learning. If you want to learn more about us, feel free to visit our page at www.esme.ph. For those who are watching on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to share this link to the stream to those people who you think will be interested or will relate to in today's topic. This webinar is in partnership with ASEAN Youth Organization, an ASEAN-approved nonprofit organization that spreads awareness of ASEAN to over 200 million young people in Southeast Asia. This webinar is also brought to you by the Rotary Club and Rotaract Club of Alabang Madrigal Park, Business Park. So you might be wondering, what will be our topic for today, right? So our topic today evolves around telecommunication, specifically 5G. So you might ask, what is 5G? So based on an article written by Qualcomm, 5G is a fifth generation mobile network. It is a new global wireless standard after the first, second, third, and fourth generation networks. This enable a new kind of network that is designed to connect virtually everyone and everything together, including machines, objects, and devices. 5G wireless technology is meant to deliver higher multi-GPS peak data speeds, ultra-low latency, more reliability, massive network capacity, increased availability, and a more uniform user experience to more users. Today, not only are we going to know more about 5G, but how it will be the future of innovations. So who will be talking to us about that topic for today? So our guest for today is the 5G evangelist and advisor on network strategy for PLDT, which offers the largest and most diverse range of fixed line and wireless services across the Philippines. His hobby has become his career, and he is passionate about connecting the unconnected. He is an advocate for the use of technology with education to improve the lives of all members of the society. So let's not hold back anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Mr. Timothy Sinatiraja.
Good morning,
Good morning,
everyone.
sir.
To get started, maybe you could mention which parts of Philippines or which part of Southeast Asia, ASEAN countries you are in. If you could just type it into the chat, and Nico, if you can help me to say it out because I only see my full screen without the
Yes, sir.
chat inside. Thank you.
So further ado, you can have the floor, sir.
Yes. So thanks everyone for joining this morning. Very good morning to everyone. To get started, could you type in where you are from? Which part of Philippines or which part of ASEAN country? Could you type it in the chat and Nico will read it out to me. Nico, are you getting any responses on the chat?
Right now, sir, there's no responses, but I'm gonna tell mine. I'm from Las Piñas City, in Metro Manila.
Thank
So
you. I'm from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, but I'm now based in Philippines for the last 5 years. And it's been an interesting road moving forward from the growth in the fourth generation mobile infrastructure to the 5G that we have recently commercially rolled out in July. So to get started, let's look at the general condition of Philippines. What are the beautiful areas in the Philippines? So if it's a mixed group from ASEAN countries, you'll know that Philippines is an archipelago of close to 7,600 plus islands. It's amazing. That also brings in the challenge of providing connectivity and services across the countries and the ASEAN area. Because in ASEAN, the growth of the internet has been tremendous. So let's look at some of the challenges as well, specific to the Philippines. We are looking at about 20 plus typhoons Recently, we had Ulysses, which was quite devastating in certain parts of the Philippines. There are active volcanoes and there are several tremors and earthquake-related activities. The reason I'm starting off with this slide is for the general knowledge of the participants from ASEAN countries on what is the prerequisite when you provide connectivity in the Philippines. And the same applies to Indonesia. And when you move into the archipelago connectivity side, definitely telecommunications is one of the essential services, just like water and electricity. This is a guidance from Hootsuite. It is based on the usage of the internet. So they're saying that in the Philippines, there's about 9 hours FaceTime on internet usage. And if you look at the numbers at the bottom, out of the 108 million population, there's 173 million phones, which means most people own more than one phones. Then if you look at
Sorry to
the,
interrupt, sir. I
yeah,
think the screen is not sharing right now. Can you please share your screen again? Thank you.
will you, uh, okay, let me share again.
Thank you very much. It's such an interesting topic, and the people are not seeing the screen. So,
Oh, okay. Are you able to see this now?
yes, sir.
5G as
Much
the
better.
innovation platform. Okay, great. So this part here is going back to the layout of the Philippines archipelago of 7,600 islands and the challenges that we face in the Philippines. And it's also similar, quite similar to what's happening in Indonesia with 14,000 plus islands. And if you look at ASEAN countries, the demand for connectivity is very high. The usage of the internet is helping transform individuals and businesses. The Philippines Pacific internet usage for 2020, it says that it states 173 million phones are connected in the Philippines with a population of 108 million, which means that a person has 2 or 3 devices. In terms of internet users, 73 million are connected online. And going back to the connectivity, 10 years back, it would have been using PCs with fixed line. It then transitioned towards notebooks connected on mobile phones. And today you have full access with the large screen mobile phones, smartphones, where you can do everything on the phone itself. And it, in some work environment, the phone replaces the notebooks. In a background to PLDT and Smart, it's the Philippines' only integrated telco. So we have the mobile services, fixed wireless services, as well as the fixed infrastructure and signal TV. So if you look at the mobile infrastructure, in July this year, we launched the 5G commercial network for the Philippines. It's progressively growing throughout the Philippines. It has already started in NCR. We also have in Cebu and Davao planned to expand further. The challenging 2020, the first picture shows you the unfortunate event of the volcanic eruption, and then a month later, the pandemic grew and we went into this quarantine. During this time, while the nurses, the special field forces and the military, the police were all helping to get the the requirements for the essential goods and services in the Philippines. The LDT Smart team was also working hard to maintain the connectivity and expand the wired and wireless infrastructure. So this has been quite a trying time globally. In the Philippines, what has been done is, in the case of connectivity, one of the use cases or the good response that we have received is the tricycle owners who are transporting people had to switch over to transporting food and goods delivery as the demand for the people movement came down with the quarantine. So that helped the businesses to continue, the individuals to put food on the table as well. Let's look at the first 4 generations. So 5G, G stands for generation, started with the first generation of the mobile phone, where the phone cable was cut. So instead of having it in your office or at home, now you could carry it and walk about. The second generation included better voice quality and text services. So you were able to have the capability of talk and text. This second generation improved on the first generation. When it came to third generation, there was a massive transformation. The transformation was that in second generation, you connect the notebook computers to the 2G phones, and then you can transmit and receive your emails in those good old days. But in 3G, it allowed you to do that on the phone itself. So if you look at it, the first generation was the first major transformation. Third generation is the second major transformation. And as the screens got bigger with the Apple launching iPhone back in 2007, if you watch the video on YouTube, you'll see that Steve Jobs says moving from just the iPod, adding the phone functionality, and adding the Safari web browser, you are able to do almost everything on the phone itself. The next generation, fourth generation, improved on 3G. It allowed you to have better speeds, better performance, and of course, the devices made a major impact. So the devices with the embedded connectivity of 4G on top of Wi-Fi enable people to, on the move, to be able to connect and continue their businesses, communicate with their family members. So what is the next major change? If you look at 1 minute back in 2018 itself, you were looking at about 266,000 hours watched in Netflix. This tremendously grew during this pandemic as people were working from home, studying from home, the video content requirement grew. All this highlights that the network demand is increasing and video is now leading the requirement. What was the impact of the telecommunication in the work environment and the individual? So if you look at 2000, that was when the digital age started. A lot of different devices came in, personal computers, moving to notebooks. And then on the phone, it was also evolving, not just for voice and text. It allowed you to have cameras, it allowed you to listen to music. So that started a major transformation. And the demand on the network also grew. 2010 was the connected age. 2020 is the information age. Here, if you go for a dinner or lunch with a group of your friends, I'm sure at one point or other, when someone makes a statement, another person will straight away go online, search on Google whether that is true and what additional information he or she can add to the discussion. So this is the connected information age. What is 2030 supposed to bring? 2030 brings in the experience age, where you have connected devices, connected vehicles, as well as individuals who are connected. As you move from the computer to the notebook to the phones, the next major transformation is from phones to eyeglasses. So if you have watched the Oculus Quest 2 launch by Facebook, you would have heard that Facebook is now looking into eyeglasses that are connected, so it can also capture the image, at the same time provide information on the screen itself. So these are the age of moving towards experience. Another major change in experience age is the ability to feel across the net. Imagine you put on the glass that's connected and you're going to buy a Persian carpet from another country. The seller puts on his or her gloves and feels the texture of the carpet. And across the net, you feel it, you are happy with it, you order it. That is one example of experience age. For a surgeon, for remote operation, imagine the top consulting surgeon in Cebu is assisting another surgeon in Manila, and he's operating the remote control. As he moves it, he can feel the tension, the texture on the controls itself from Cebu with the operating patient in Manila. So the two surgeons can collaborate and perform an operation. For that, have haptic feel across the internet is critical. In relation to that, the transformation in each generation of the mobile network has enabled all these different services to come about. It is like a chicken and egg situation. Do you wait for the device before you come out with the application, or do you work on an application and then work with the device manufacturers, the network service providers, in trying to find a solution? In the early age, the requirements were driven based on what was available technologically. Today, people realize they have certain problems or solutions that needs to be developed for different challenges. So they work in collaboration. So if your key takeaway for 2020 onwards is collaboration, you become an expert in one area and you work with experts in other areas to solve a general problem. Please remember, 5G is not the silver bullet. By putting 5G in a factory, it doesn't make it Industry Revolution 4.0. 5G is a connectivity platform. What you build on top of it, the sensors, the device control, the robotics control, then you go one layer up, the application that coordinates this, the one layer up, artificial intelligence, machine learning, how it picks up the information and controls in the timely order of the factory. That is what IR 4.0 is, Industry Revolution 4.0. So 5G is a major enabling platform for innovation. At present, we are working on 6G, the vision and drivers. The reason why we started this engagement with the Next Generation Mobile Networks, NGMN, is an organization of operators globally, is to highlight what improvement on 5G is required for 6G. Just like what we started, 2G improved on 1G, 4G improved on 3G, 6G will continue to improve on 5G. While we are rolling out 5G, we are already having a vision towards 6G. This is similar to when I was back in Japan in 1999, 2000, working on the first 3G network in Japan with the operators. And in that environment, we were helping them to transition from 2G over to 3G. So while we were working on 3G, we were already planning for 4G. It takes about a decade, 10 years for the new technology. So you can see that it's the right timing now as we are rolling out 5G globally, how we support activities requirements for 6G. Interesting times. A quick recap. For some of you, you might be familiar with speeds, latency, but for the general information, I hope you can bear with the screen. It explains the difference between speed and latency. The latency is the round trip delay, and if the packets arrive out of time sequence, in certain transactions, you will have to drop the packet if it is video. But in certain transactions, you have to request for a retransmission. Like for example, if you're moving money or sending money to someone else, you want to make sure every zero is accounted for. That will impact the impact of the latency, the jitter. These are things that will impact the quality of the connectivity. So in simple terms, it's like a ETSA highway. If you ask anyone how long will it take to travel from Commonwealth Avenue in QC to McCarthy Avenue here, the answer will always start with, it depends. For example, on a Friday, it depends whether it's a Friday, rainy day Friday, payday rainy day Friday, sales day, payday, rainy day, Friday. So you have 4 different categories of congestion on ETSA highway. Similarly, in a network infrastructure, you need to identify what is causing the latency, how you can reduce it, what type of application needs low latency, which application needs higher bandwidth. So that is a simplified view of explaining speed versus latency. As operators, we continue to build and expand the network. This is similar. If you look at ETSA in 1959, with a single lane, it was already congested. Today, with multiple lanes, with the train and all the different modes of transport, congestion is there. So the transformation has to continue. So now we are looking at building the bridges, building the subways. So these are transformation that never ends. In terms of connectivity, the devices make the important role. As you see, there are different chipsets, different handphones, tablets, connected devices, watches. All these are putting the demand on the network, and the network is supporting new devices to be developed. And that's why my title for this presentation is 5G as the innovation platform. A recap of, for those who are familiar with radio, you understand this. For those who are new, a quick view of what radio technology is. So just like you listen to your music, different channels on different frequencies, the lower the frequency, the further it can travel. The higher the frequency, the shorter it can travel. The benefit then is on the higher frequency band, you have bigger capacity. So you can think of it as the size of the straw that you're going to use to drink. So as you go with a lower frequency, it's a longer distance connectivity solution. As you go to the higher frequency, even though it now shrinks the size of the coverage, it increases the capacity what you can have across. The other challenge that operators face and need to be addressed is when buildings and billboards come up, they block the signal. So that creates blind spots and so on. The operators will continue to deploy new sites for improved coverage. In LTE, you might have heard the term CA, or on your phone you see LTE-A or LTE plus. That means the operator has several different frequencies. The phone is able to combine these frequencies, carrier aggregation, to give you a better service. So that is the capability of the phone and the network working together. In LTE, the maximum size of each frequency pipes or the bands is 20 megahertz. That is now removed when you go to 5G. So in 5G, the size of a single pipe can be up to 100 megahertz. In 3G, it was smaller. In LTE, it became 20 megahertz. And in 5G, it's now 100 megahertz, which means that I can take 100 megahertz, 100 megahertz, several of these pipes, and do carrier aggregation as well. These are all interesting technology to serve the customers. Now, some will be enterprise customers with specific demands. Some will be the consumers with different demands. For example, you might be watching a Netflix video. If you're watching it on SD, you're looking at up to 5 megabits per second streaming. If you move to 4K video, your streaming capacity now has to be 25 megabits per second. If you move to 8K, you need 100 megabits per second streaming for that video to be transmitted to your device, smart TV and so on. So these are the type of requirements that the network, the device, and the generations of technology are solving. So I hope that this gives you a good understanding of what we are going to discuss after this. Okay, as the new sites are rolled out, it improves the coverage as well. This was what I was talking about. 2030 is moving towards the experience age. You have the haptic points like this. So there's some of you who play games, you might have this vest that you put on. When someone kicks on the game, you feel the kick on your body. This is an example of a 68-point haptic points. Now, of course, it starts with gaming, but it moves towards the industry, towards the verticals of, for example, design of new devices. When you're building safety environment, you want to see how assembling of a factory vehicle, how will it impact the person carrying the item, placing it on the vehicle, attaching it. So these feedbacks has to be two ways, not only from the sensors on your body, telling what strains you have on the different parts, but also to create a tension on your hand, heat feeling, and even senses that you can have when you collaborate with people around the globe towards solving a problem. So it starts with gaming at present, but there's a lot of new cases being developed for the industry. This is an interesting gadget on the right. If you see this, this is the scent mask. It can get the different scents. So if you're playing and you're in a rose garden, you have the smell of the rose garden. Interesting stuff coming up. For the industries, so as you start your career, you're working in different areas. If you look at the talk of a lot of countries today, is how to help the industries move towards Industry 4.0. So the Industry 1.0 was with the steam engine, the mechanization. Electricity allowed the mass production, moving towards microelectronics and the ICT, information communication technology. They could put sensors, get information back from the production line to understand whether it is performing at the maximum capacity. Now you go one step further, these devices connect wirelessly, because if that particular production line is going to be the same for the next 2 years, you can wire it up. But as OEM, original equipment manufacturers for different design companies come about, you might need to change your production line. So when you want to move things around, wireless solution complementing fixed makes it simpler. And in that area, Wi-Fi is one critical solution. On top of that is 5G. So 5G working together with Wi-Fi will allow you to have a better wireless factory automation solution. This is just one example. There are many other industries to look into. The next two slides are important. If you pay attention to these two slides and you remember these two basic principles, these two slides principles I'm going to present, you'll be able to understand what 5G is trying to solve, what it can do, and what is available today and what is planned for the future. So the first thing we want from 5G over 4G is definitely higher data speeds. You want to be able to connect more devices in the same area, and you want instant response. So more data, you've always seen speeds of 500 megabits per second, 1 gig per second, 14 gig per second. More devices can be sensors being picked up. For example, if you have building structure and inside the beams of the building, you have a sensor with a long-lasting battery and it sends information at periodic interval, which means it can last for 10, 15, 20 years. So at present with 5G, the plan is to have sensors which can last for 8 to 10-year period. During the earthquake, after the earthquake, the sensors keep sending the information. Based on that, the first responders will know which buildings are safe, which buildings need immediate attention, which floor, which beam needs to be attended to. Looking at the bridges, they will know which bridge can be used for the vehicles to go in to help in the rescue. So these are critical life-saving solutions. You have to look at what is it the technology can provide and what is the problem you're trying to solve. If you are looking at agriculture, for example, you want to know what's the soil condition. Should I irrigate now? Should they put in the fertilizer now? Or if there's information on the weather says it's going to rain, then you wait for the rain to be over and you do the fertilizing on the ground and so on. So these are type of information collaboration. So you need expertise in different areas, collaborating for a solution. Instant response is what everybody is talking about in 5G. It is your instant response, for example, remote operation, as I gave as example. In the industry, is for the robotics control. In the transportation, if you have a platoon of trucks moving, the time taken for one truck to communicate to the other truck, and when one truck applies the brakes, the other truck needs time to slow down. If the round trip time is shorter, the trucks can be traveling closer. If the latency is longer, then they have to have a bigger distance. What is the impact? If they are closer and in a safe condition, I can have more trucks in a port use case, for example. So that will increase productivity. So these are the type of areas that 5G is addressing. From an operator's network, we build a single infrastructure to support these three. So now comes the technical terms. You don't have to memorize it. You can always look this up with Uncle Google. Just look at 5G and the higher bandwidth, the massive devices, and the instant response. It'll give you the terms. EMBB in LTE is mobile broadband. Here is enhanced mobile broadband, higher speeds. In LTE, you have the machine type communication. Here it becomes massive machine type communication. Moving to low latency, it's not only low latency, but also ultra reliable low latency. So these are the three terms, but the basic concept is you want more data, more devices connected, instant response. different applications will then need to be sliced across the network. So some people like more icing on the cake. Some people like a smaller slice of cake. Just like how you slice in a birthday party, you can do that in a network moving from LTE to 5G. So LTE is a one size fits all solution, whether it's monitoring your door sensors, whether it's a HD video being transmitted, one size fits all. In 5G, you slice it depending on the requirement. So if you're controlling a drone, you need ultra reliable, low latency slice, providing connectivity to the drone. For the HD camera, the thermal camera, for those you need 4K resolution, then you'll use the first case, which is the EMPB. So that is how you provide the slices for the different services. So these are the four keywords. The original 5G standards were supposed to be released this year, 2020. However, in Korea for the Winter Olympics, they wanted the 5G in 2018. So when you pull something 2 years ahead of time, you need to work with an interim solution. And that's where they came up with, let's look at 5G high capacity broadband service, but we use the existing LTE network. That's why the term comes in as NSA, non-standalone. So it allows the LTE network to get the benefit of the 5G radio. So LTE and new radio. The true benefit of 5G will come in as we start working on SA standalone. So in Smart, the first trials of standalone, which means you have a separate 5G core connected to the radio, connected to the 5G phones and devices. This allows you to go to the ultra high bandwidth requirements plus the two new benefits, which is the massive devices and the instant response. So the first trial we did in Smart was back in November last year. It was the first time in Southeast Asia. So that's the terms that you understand. The 5 things about 5G. Number 1, EMBB, massive speeds you want to have. MMTC, you want massive number of devices connected. URLLC, you want many devices, but very reliable, low latency communication. And number 4, the operator will then provide different slices for these services. And number 5 is the capability to work with non-standalone and standalone. So the networks that were rolled out last year and progressively being rolled out this year by operators globally started with NSA. So we are also enabling the standalone. So it will coexist for a while. The reason is the devices that were released last year, 2019, are NSA only devices. If you remove the NSA part, then you only work on LTE. So for that reason, operators globally will be having both services for a short period of time. So when you talk about non-standalone, the device connects to the 4G core network, and as the data is being transmitted, it can then establish a 5G data connection. So this is how you get the 5G benefit on top of the LTE speeds. So LTE speeds, like what you have in the Philippines, by Ookla and OpenSignal have identified Smart as having the fastest network. You're adding on top of that the 5G bandwidth capability. Again, it depends on your device. A 4G phone will only connect to the 4G network. A 5G phone can connect to either one. So you can start with LTE only areas, and in 5G areas, it'll establish the dual connectivity. The term they call is DC, dual connectivity, and that's where you get the high bandwidth requirement. Okay, so before we go on, are there any questions on what was presented so far? If Nico, you can help to convey any questions in the chat.
Right now, there are no questions so far, sir. So,
okay, great.
Can you continue?
So looking at the 5G network rollout, these are the promises of 5G. So in 3G, you're looking at speeds of up to 384 kilobits per second. Moving towards 4G, it is 100 megabits, but I did mention to you that 4G can also do carrier aggregation. So you can have, let's say, 100 megabits of this, 50 megabits of another frequency, 30 megabits on another, 100 another. It can aggregate these speeds. So 4G speeds are also growing tremendously. In 5G, the general term they say is 10 gigabits per second. Now you have to also take into consideration the local country. Each country has a telecoms regulator. They assign the spectrum to the operators. So the amount of spectrum assigned to the operator will determine the size of the pipe and what is the maximum speed. So the improvements that you see on 5G, it also ties back to the each country's regulator assigning the radio frequencies. Another major advantage in 5G is what they call MIMO. MIMO is the multiple input, multiple output. So that is like, for example, your ears is two hearing, one talking. So two receive, one transmit. The phones are usually on 2T, 2R, moving towards 4 receive and 2 transmit. So with all the improvements on the phones, the network has to also be able to cater for that. And 5G goes beyond what 4G can do. It goes into massive MIMO, meaning that it has many transmitters on the antenna. So the antennas are rectangular, slightly broader in size. That allows you to also bring in beamforming. So instead of one time radio resource shared by several users, you can beamform to specific users at the same time. So that's another advantage of massive MIMO, massive multiple input, multiple output. So this is an example of what the normal antennas you see on the towers or on the rooftop. The longer the antenna means it goes to the lower frequency. Remember the example I gave earlier, 700 megahertz moving to 2.1 gigahertz, 2.6 gigahertz. So those antennas will be the longer antennas. On 5G, we are deploying on 2.6 and 3.5 gigahertz, then the antennas are smaller. The higher the frequency, the antenna becomes compact. So this is an example of a massive MIMO antenna. So in LTE, you have 2 by 2 or 4 by 4 MIMO. In 5G, you go to 32 by 32 or 64 by 64 massive MIMO. So in real deployment globally, the operators will have a combination of towers, the macro sites, including the towers which are catered for 5G. And for higher capacities, they will have small cells attached local connected, for example, on bus stops, on traffic light areas, the lamppost areas where people congregate, you want to give higher capacity. So this is how a 5G and a 4G network will coexist. This is an example from the internet of how the phone works together. While you see what the network does, same thing applies to the phone. The phone has to have the chipset. If it is a LTE only phone, then it'll only work up to LTE level. If it is a 5G phone, then it can work on 5G, 4G, 3G, 2G. So that's the capability of the newer phones. The components in there make a difference, the antenna solution. Now, this is just an example of how much complexity is being built into such a small device today. We talked about speed and latency. Most of you know the speeds, the better the speeds, I can get better quality videos. Latency makes an impact on machine to machine, robotics control. For human to human, if I hear you talk less than half a second, it's still reasonable time delay. So if you watch on TV when they're interviewing someone over satellite communication, the person asks the question, then both people are silent, then the other person replies, and then this person is silent, then this person asks the question, the other person is silent. That is because of the satellite latency. In 5G, what is latency all about? If you think of this camera as the eye monitoring this ball, and then if you look at the three robotic arms as the hands moving the ball. So for example, in live presentations, I have a tray. I will ask three participants to come in, hold the tray, and try to stabilize this ball in the center. The eye communicating back to the muscles, in this case the hands or the robot, will be through a control. Let's see the difference of 4G versus 5G. Please remember, 4G meets a lot of requirements today. 5G is expanding it for the future, especially on automation and robotics control. So this is the latency time on 4G. This is the improved latency on 5G. So when the person moves the ball, the eye monitors, you see how many movements needs to be done in order to get the ball centralized. This is on a LTE simulated 100 millisecond latency. When I bring the latency down to sub 3 milliseconds, see how fast it stabilizes in 5G. So now it makes sense why we have the new category of URLLC. Ultra reliable, low latency communication. It's for this type of situations. It's for robotics control, for vehicle monitoring, for drone management. However, whatever LTE can do, 5G can do better. So the other two services, EMBB and massive machine type communication, provides the basic services. The URLC is specific for use cases like this, where you need very low latency. Okay, so you can see in LTE, around 100 milliseconds latency, it takes about 11 seconds for it to stabilize. With sub 3 milliseconds, it was able to stabilize in 3 seconds. This is a major improvement for industry automation. So 5G is catering for normal plus special requirements. These are some of the activities that we have carried out. We started back in 2016, so it's not something that you do in a short period of time, bringing in a new technology. So 2016 was the first live test of 5G in the Philippines. Then we worked with the other vendors as well. We had the first commercially ready 5G network in Clark as well as Makati. We also tested with millimeter wave. That's where you can see speeds of up to 14 gigabits per second. And then we had the first Araneta 5G city in 2019. A major showcase was the 2019 SEA Games. So the first time in SEA Games, this was deployed. The camera, 360 camera, was placed in several of the arenas. So one of it was the boxing arena in Manila. And the fan zone was back in NCC, New Clark City. So in the fan zone, they used the augmented reality headset, and they were able to watch the boxing match in the arena. So this was quite an interesting event. In February this year, we had the first 5G powered esports exhibition match, where 10 of these 5G phones were connected here in RCD, the head office of PLDT, on the Makati Avenue, Ayala Avenue area. And we had this online game, Mobile Legends. And they saw the benefits of the lower latency of 5G. Remember, this is on NSA, it's already getting this benefit. As you go towards standalone, it'll be even lower latency, especially for industrial use cases. So what is 5G useful for? Most operators globally started with fixed wireless access, meaning for areas where they cannot roll out fiber in time, or they cannot improve the existing copper, they provide fiber-like speeds, fiber-like performance in locations where you are using a wireless terminal. So that's why it's called fixed wireless access. The next major rollout is based on EMBB. So this is an example of what we have done since July commercial rollout. We have got different 5G devices. Remember, the network must support it, the device must support it, and the SIM in the device must be provisioned for 5G service. If these three don't match, then it'll be on LTE network. Moving forward, you have augmented reality. Right now, you're seeing a screen with me here. In the future, you have augmented reality. You can walk between rooms. You can attend different conferences in a virtual environment. So that is, if you watched the Oculus Quest 2 launch, you could have watched it on the Oculus Quest 1. That was quite an interesting view of having this type of 360 view and the ability to look at the person sitting next to you. You can send chat messages and so on. R&D. Why are we focusing R&D? As I mentioned, first generation cut the cable, third generation allowed you to work on the device directly without a notebook. Fifth generation brings in a lot of new services, and that requires your brain power. You're working in the industry, some of you are studying, you have ideas. You need to now convert it into solutions, and that's where we collaborate with education institutions, academic institutions, universities in identifying the R&D. For factory automation, we work with the robotic manufacturers, the factory organization itself, the company, the designers, the network specialists, and we provide a collaborative solution. E-gaming, this was first time held here in the Philippines in February. This is showing the benefits of 5G. So instead of being locked in a particular area, you can move to a park or an area that has 5G coverage and continue your games. Esports, so if you have watched the PBA 2020, the Philippines Basketball Association 2020 games that was held in AUF in Pampanga, we provided the 5G coverage in that site. We provided the devices for them to use the phones to capture background and backstories and so on. So that is an example of how sports and media leverage on 5G. In that environment, it's a combination of services. You have fiber to the site, you have Wi-Fi, you have LTE, you also have 5G. This is what we are looking at, providing the necessary platform for new innovative solution to come in. In ports and security, this was the example I mentioned. You have the drones with the HD camera, thermal imaging. If someone is hiding inside behind a block or cloth, and you can detect that through thermal imaging for security reasons. Retail, medical. So these are a lot of new areas we planned for. However, we added one additional area. We called it 5G for good. So when we introduced this concept of 5G for good, they were asking, why does this play an important role? This was last year, April. So when we're talking about it, we said in a lot of countries, they need connectivity. It has to be complementing your fixed and your wireless. And some of the 5G capabilities extends the connectivity between humans. So when we planned this, we did not know about what's going to happen during this period of time with this pandemic. So the example you can search on the internet was a hospital that was built in China. They were able to build it within 15 days. Imagine you build a hospital in 15 days to handle thousands of patients. You need to wire it up. Wiring takes a lot of time. So if you can provide the basic wiring and then use 5G as wireless for the devices, LTE as wireless for the tablets, and that collaboration allowed the patient and the doctor to communicate, the robots to move into the room to room to check on the patient. These are things that we did not think about when we came up with this guideline. But think about it, the next 5 years, it's up to your imagination on what you're going to bring to the industry. You bring it in the ASEAN countries, you bring it in the Philippines, in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Indonesia. You bring it there, get it tested, bring it to the global, bring it into Europe, into US, into Korea, Japan, China. These are the different type of environment which I've titled this presentation, 5G as an innovation platform. This was Orange in France.
Orange will soon be launching its 5G network.
Imagine you download your favorite movie
5G is a real revolution, taking
in few
us far
seconds
beyond
before your
simple
flight.
mobile uses, and companies will be the first to benefit
Remote
from it.
consultancy,
5G brings with it the promise of faster speeds and higher performance.
augmented reality
Working
for
directly with
maintenance,
experts, maintenance operations can be carried out in augmented reality.
identify and replace,
The network architecture behind 5G makes it extremely reactive,
massive
capable of
connected
handling millions of
devices,
connected objects at a time. Multiple
sensors,
sensors will enable sites to measure the behavior of their facilities and prevent any abnormal situation arising.
ultra low latency for drone
5G
inspection of
also marks
sites,
the advent of real time. A drone or vehicle can be controlled remotely with zero latency. It enables precision operations that require
collaborative
millisecond
design from
reliability
different
to go
countries.
ahead. It will be possible to reserve parts of the network for priority uses,
Slicing.
particularly on industrial sites, which depend on efficient, flexible, and secure connectivity. It will also guarantee
Connected
smoother
ambulance,
and more reliable care
healthcare.
pathways, which will lead to better healthcare and outcomes for patients.
Patient is being treated while being stuck on a
What's more,
jam on top, for
5G will allow
example.
new services to be created and new uses to be invented. And for this, it's over to you.
So I hope that this gives you an idea of what 5G can bring about, but there's no limit. Just like when 3G was launched, people didn't think about buying food online, doing online transaction of money, booking tickets, hotels, and even collaborating a design of some new ideas with people from around the world over the phone. Today, it's a reality. The connectivity is a combination of fixed, it'll be a combination of wireless. What 5G brings in the next 5 years is in your hands. You, as the youth that is leading this country and this region, you have ideas that we have not thought about. Bring that up and move the country forward into the global arena. This is an example of what was launched back last year. So when 5G was launched in Korea, within 69 days, they had 1 million 5G subscribers. In China, when they launched it last year, within that period of time, they had the pre-launch. On the day of the launch, they had 10 million subscribers. What does all these millions mean? It means that the demand for device is there, the chipset is there. They are driving the new devices being developed. The always connected, always online PC is coming about. Everything is connected to the cloud. You're at home, you're on Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi could be on a fixed or wireless. You are moving out of your home to your office, to your school, you're connected over LTE network, over 5G connection. You move into your campus, you're connected on fiber between campus, you're connected on LTE, Wi-Fi, 5G. This is how you provide the platform to develop new services. In Korea, for example, they looked at augmented reality using online gaming as the initial offering. That is your business to consumer market. Business to business brought in the design capability. Your teams of developers are in Davao, Cebu, Manila with Wi-Fi connection, with fiber connections, and some of your designers are at home on fiber, on wireless, some are with LTE devices, some are with 5G devices. That does not matter. That's the connectivity layer. What you do on top of it, that is the one that's going to make the change. It can be for mining. You might come up with the idea, the remote drone management for security, for safety. Before the blast occurs, your drone does a quick run, thermal camera, make sure there's no humans there in the blast zone. The vehicles themselves, onboard monitoring of the vehicle. You know what is the condition of the engine, the different motors, and you can plan the maintenance. You don't want it while it's transporting coal halfway on the transport road, it stops. You want to do preventive maintenance. For medical, you have the imaging capability. You have the MRIs, the CT scans. You combine all this on demand with different doctors being able to share ideas on a digital twin. This is another term you'll hear frequently. Digital twin means using the sensors, using the images, you create a digital duplicate of what you're working on. It could be a patient, it could be the roads. Like in your pocket today, in your phone, you might have Waze. That is your digital twin of your road transport system where there's congestion. Moving it forward, the doctors could then have a discussion on a patient where there's going to be a heart surgery, brain surgery. They can look at different slices in the digital twin, discuss, and then go and work on the patient. Once the patient is discharged from the hospital, you can continue monitoring the patient with connected devices. Some of this will be on Wi-Fi, some will be on LTE, some on 5G. These are the new services that comes in. And remember, whatever you develop here in the Philippines, in ASEAN countries, is the same requirements globally. You might have a good idea, get it done, bring it to the global arena. Vehicle to vehicle communication, V2V, vehicle to pedestrian, V2P. So as the ambulance was passing by just now, a message was sent to the person who was about to cross at the zebra crossing. Don't cross because emergency vehicle is passing. Vehicle to vehicle. If there's an accident around a blind corner, if the accident occurred here, there's a high possibility another car coming and making a turn might cause a secondary accident. So if this vehicle send a alarm to the network monitoring will inform the vehicles surrounding to ensure that they slow down or stop and prevent a secondary accident. So this is an example by Sprint. So there's a lot of interesting ideas on the internet, but the basic five are the same. You want massive connectivity speeds, you want massive connectivity of devices, you want to have very low latency for this type of use cases, robotics use cases. These are the three critical services 5G brings on top of what LTE can provide. This is your EMBB, MMTC, URLLC. The operator then creates slices depending on what is required for which company, which devices, which network. Network slicing comes in. That is item number 4. And the fifth is the capability of the standalone and non-standalone. Whether you start off globally to meet the demand, the devices initially worked with LTE plus 5G. And as you move towards next year, more and more operators will combine this service and offer this. At the same time, they will also offer standalone capabilities to go beyond the EMBB services. So that is the interesting times ahead that you can see in the next 5 to 10 years. And you are going to be leading it. This is 5G for media. So with the wireless connectivity, you have the high-speed connection, the ability for the cameraman. And if you look at the phones today, some of the phones are 108 megapixels. Right? It's amazing what it used to be those days and what it can do today. You also have the LiDAR capability. You have the capability to do 3D imaging, positioning. And with all those new services that's coming up, things that is considered normal today will become the foundation for new type of services. So imagine if you are a person doing reality, you take a picture of the room in LiDAR and you send the image across to the designer. The designer knows the layout, the distances, the height, everything is in the image, and they can place the furniture and the setup. It could be for example, in a restaurant, how the layout of the restaurant is going to be, where the cooking area, where the serving areas are. These are new services that will be coming as a new norm next year. With the working from home, studying from home, demand is there. It'll take some time for it to go back to the normal. So what they're saying is that 9 to 5 jobs are going to become probably 3 days a week you'll be in the office, 2 days a week you'll be working from home as they transition back to the old normal. So the new normal has brought about, if you think about it, the last 10 years, when we talked about LTE, when we talked about fixed wireless access, fiber to the home, we were saying that it provides you connectivity immaterial where you are to continue your infotainment, information gathering, entertainment, gaming, education, and work. Unfortunately, it is this pandemic that's proven that true. So when you talk about green technology, you're talking about saving the carbon emission. We can see the changes that's happening today with the advent of technology. It's the devices, the headsets, the connectivity platform, but all these are driven by you. You are the one who's going to come up with new ideas, new ways of solving problems, things that people didn't think about. Two people were sitting and having a noodle, and they were thinking about in the rain, how do I get a cab? The birth of My Taxi became Grab today. And because I can now book a Grab, why not I book a service to send items abroad, sending items. Moving forward, Since I can send items, why not I pick up items from restaurants and deliver to you? So that type of innovation is what we are looking at as you move from 4G to 5G. What are the new areas you are going to bring to the table? Manufacturing, this will be the major impact. As industries move, collaborative design, it's being designed in Europe, being manufactured in Philippines, in Taiwan, in Korea. These are the collaborative areas, and you want to be able to be flexible to move and change. Logistics, when your vehicle is being tracked, you're able to monitor whether the goods being transported are in good condition. The reefer packages, that means refrigerated containers, from the ship to the port, port to the truck, truck to the store. So this has to be end-to-end monitored. My slides never end as the end. This is just the beginning. In 1999, 2000, when I was in Japan, it was the first major transformation of 3G. Then we went back and we continued with the LTE. Now in Philippines, I'm here for the last 5 years. We are working on the next major transformation of 5G. These are different industry and telecommunication revolutions. All these are driven by humans. The machine is just one part of it. 5G is one component of it. You are the one who's going to make it into the innovation platform for the future. Thank you. Nico, is there any questions? I think we can open up the floor for questions.
So yes, sir. So that was such a very interesting topic. So actually, we have prepared a set of questions for you. But before that, if anyone in the audience watching, if you have any questions for Dr. Timothy, please feel free to ask them in the comment section down below of whatever platform you're watching. So, Doc Timothy, as you mentioned that there's 5G, there's a lot of interesting ways to use it, like in manufacturing, in logistics, the vehicle to vehicle media. How do you think is 5G going to affect the economy of the Philippines and internationally?
There's been a lot of studies done by consulting companies that show that as you bring connectivity, same as when you provide clean water to a particular community, you provide electricity, the whole community improves. By providing connectivity, whether it's fixed or wireless, it's going to improve the education, it's going to improve the work environment and the capability to move forward. Think about the BPO industry. Previously in the BPO industry, they have to find a particular city with just a good connectivity and then provide global service. Now with the new norm, the people who are supporting the BPO industry are moving back to the residential areas. So in that case, cities, provinces which previously didn't have good connectivity, as new services become available, connectivity becomes available, it allows you to create new business opportunities, work opportunities. It's now distributed, no longer centralized. And that's where 5G plays an important role for manufacturing, for industry communication, for wireless service, people on the road. As they move between sites, for example, a construction site, you need to monitor the site, you need the drones. So 5G will complement the fixed solutions. So you can imagine the new services that's required. Now, for the rest of you in this group, you might be specializing on different sectors. Think about what is the limiting factor in your work environment? What is a limiting factor in the type of service your company is offering? So from a BPO, for example, how can I move from just handling calls, monitoring of data, handling reservation and cancellation? How can I move from that level to KPO, from business process outsourcing to knowledge process outsourcing? How can I get the engineers, the lawyers, the financial consultants, the medical doctors, the healthcare industry? How can I connect them to the patients, to the industry requirement, not only here in the Philippines, but globally? Some of it will be on wired, some on wireless. How can you collaborate? Look at the applications. Then think of the new jobs being created. Things like influencers were never there until you were able to have the good quality camera with a reasonable quality connection for you to take a video of your food, of the vehicle, of the trip that you went on and put it on the internet, giving you the capability to reach out to the mass. Think of those things that never existed 10 years ago. What new areas are you going to create for the benefit of the Philippines and the ASEAN countries in the next 5 years? Thank you.
Okay, sir. So, from what you've mentioned, like it's it will enable enterprises to move forward. So how will 5G help enterprises enable to move more forward in the future? Like, how it how will it be able to improve on what other things that the enterprises might need? How will 5G enable them?
Hmm. You can see that LT is doing a lot for the existing requirements. On top of this, you have the capability now in 5G for the slicing to come in. You now customize the connectivity based on the requirement. That's why in 5G it's called SBA, service-based architecture. So you configure the transport network, the core network that provides the services, and then the network resource for the internet connections or the connection to the robots or the communications, video conferencing. You create different slices and it's end to end, it's secure, and it allows the companies to now come out with solutions specific to a particular industry. For a factory automation, for example, I can have local services. The robotics arm, the control machines, the local data center, it's in a private network. The private network, a lot of it will be connected by fiber and Ethernet cables. As you move towards the production side, you might have a flexibility of adding Wi-Fi on top of your Wi-Fi in your data center. You also have Wi-Fi in the production side. Adding the capability to slice it now with 5G, it complements your Wi-Fi. So think about the different requirements and what you're going to provide. Now you have a huge amount of sensor data coming back from your production line, robotic arm, the movement robot, the production line, the conveyor system. You pick up all the statistics, you identify which robot will be diminishing in performance. You order the replacement part before it crashes. You get the replacement part and then you replace it in a controlled period of time. So that will increase productivity, reduce downtime, and this is your total cost of ownership of the network. You now expand it outside the factory. Your factory is here, your design center is in Cebu, your management organization could be in Davao. How do you provide end-to-end connectivity, real-time monitoring? These are the services you bring across. So it applies on all. A lot of it that started in the gaming industry is now moving into the business cases. So for example, as I mentioned about the doctors, so if I'm able to control the robotic arm remote operation, as you move, you want the tactile feel. If there's a tension in the cut, you want to feel it on the control robotic arm. That is the collaboration that brings it. Some will be wired, some will be over wireless.
Okay, sir. So that is quite interesting. So actually, re- referencing to the services of the operators that we have right now, what are the areas that entrepreneurs need to focus with the growth in 5G?
That's a good point. Because if you look at what the entrepreneurs are coming up with, they are coming up with solutions to challenges they face. So the entrepreneurs are in different industries. They are working with different customers. They could have been working in a particular organization, and then they came up with the idea, they left the organization and started a company to solve the problem. The concept is still the same. Many years back, one of the research that I was doing is technopreneur. So the university professor asked me, what do you mean by technopreneur? I said that entrepreneurs are solving problems. A technopreneur focuses on what technology can be used to solve the problem. So that is a collaboration of the industry, the academe, with the connectivity providers, with the integration solution providers, and the entrepreneur who's going to come up with ideas to solve it. You will need to collaborate. So moving one level up, what applications are required? So you cannot use the old method of application development. You need to work with partners who can do rapid prototyping, not only on the manufacturing of devices, but also the application that's supporting that, the sensor collection, robotics control. Then you go one level up. How can I add machine learning, capturing all this information? How do I store it? I need data scientists to come in to come up with a better idea of converting this data into meaningful information. Can you see there's a new area of entrepreneur organizations? Going one level up, you have the services that's coming in. Sorry, just give me a second, please.
Right. So, well, Sir Timothy, Dr. Timothy is um, having some difficulties. I would like to invite everyone to visit our website from www.esme.ph if you want to learn more about uh, an e-learning marketplace that will help you learn about different skill sets. I would also like to mention that this webinar is in partnership with ASEAN Youth Organization and Rotary Club and Rotaract Club of Alabang Madrigal Business Park. So once again, if you have any other questions for Dr. Timothy, please feel free to put down in the comment section below. And I think Dr. Timothy is ready now.
I think this is another
Okay.
entrepreneur area you could work on, is how to block out the dog's noise in the background.
Yes,
Sorry
sir.
about that. This is the challenge of working from home. So this requires machine learning. It requires artificial intelligence. And then I believe some of these video conference platform companies are already working on this. They block out your keyboard clicking. And then if you're munching on crispies like potato chips, they can analyze that and block that out. They are also working on blocking out pets noise, vacuum cleaners. So this becomes a new norm requirement. So that itself is a business innovation idea for you to work on. Sorry about
Yes,
that.
it's completely fine, sir. So actually, this isn't a question, sir, but more of like asking for advices. So since this is a webinar for the youth, what advices or things that you can give our audience to to help empower the knowledge about 5G?
The, the location or the type of experience you're looking at, when you study in school and then you go to the university, that is only giving you the way to analyze and look at different circumstances. So the university prepares you towards getting ready to work in the industry. When you move into the industry, you're going to be in a particular area of work. For example, if you're in the telecom, you could be in the network engineering, core network engineering, you could be in the marketing, interfacing to the customer. That is just telecoms. You move into the factory, you might be on the quality control, you might be on the design team, you might be using your expertise on your programs that you've done in the university, how to bring in the industry. While you're doing that, expand your knowledge. Today, education is no longer limited to universities. That is a very good starting point. Use those research methods, bring it into the internet world. Search for information, YouTube. Like for example, if you want to cut the chicken into 12 pieces, you search on YouTube, they will show you how to do that. If you want to get a simple vacuum cleaner fixed up and cleaned up properly, there's guidance for that. So just like that, your area of expertise, you know what you require, learn about the other departments. So that's one of the projects that I'm supporting PRDT Smart on, is on the education transformation. You're looking at polymath. Polymath means It's beyond your main area of focus. You need to understand what are your neighboring departments, what is the requirements they have, and the impact you have on your whole company. That is your first step. Learn that. Your company provides a lot of training when you go for online coffee chats with your colleagues. Exchange ideas. Remember, there is no stupid idea. It's always an idea that you need to find a solution to. So when Akio Morita met his workers on the production line, he was asking them, what would you like if you were to design something? One of the technician on that line said that I travel by train to work every day. I just wish I had a device that can play music. That is the starting point of your Sony Walkman. The ideas that comes from the ground up, you know your challenges. Bring it to an innovation group in your company, innovation team within your department, and allocate 1 hour. For example, in Google, you can take time off, work on the idea, and come back. One of the examples of that type of innovation is your Google Maps. So it's nothing that cannot be addressed. Don't worry about the budget. Don't worry whether the technology can do it today. For example, when we were connecting computers up together with cables, those were 2 megabits per second. Now we are connecting data centers with 800 gigabits per second on one single fiber, the size of your hair, strand of hair. Let technology resolve it. Come up with an innovative idea. Identify what you're trying to solve. Innovation, there are 8 different areas of innovation. Maybe that could be a future presentation I can have with you. It's how can I combine? I have a phone, I have a camera. Let me put this together. The first innovation came from Japan. That has transformed what you have in your hand today. Another person said, I have a phone, I have a Walkman, why not I digitize the voice? It became your iPod. iPod, let me put it together with my phone, became your iPhone. I'm now having more than 50 devices in this, 50 solutions in this. So many things that you used to have. Simple organizer. You want a reminder. You need a watch, an alarm. You need the comments. Now you integrate it. That is innovation. Combine what is day to day into a new solution. Then identify how is it going to be connected. Is it going to be a connection over the internet? Is it going to be a local connection in the company, within your department, within your office? Then it's going to be fixed wired or wireless. That's how you are not supposed to know the nitty-gritty of every area. You know what needs to be done. Find the experts in each of the vertical within your company, within your group of companies, and then move forward as a solution. It's not going to happen in 3 months. It might happen in 10 years. Like how the technology moves, first, second, third, until the fifth generation. It's a decade to move that. But within your company, it could be within weeks, it could be within months. Think about that and help your company move. Do not limit yourself. This is my specialization. I only focus on this. Thank you, Nico.
Yes, sir, that is quite very inspiring advice. I would help my company just to think outside the box more and help
Yeah,
around.
that's right.
So, for everyone who attended this webinar, all of you can get a digital certificate of your attendance. For sure, you want to get your own certificate. So, if you want to, then just head on to our website www.esme.ph or click on the link that we posted in the comment section below. So, Dr. Timothy, thank you very much for your wonderful topic and inspiring topic. Do you have anything that you want to promote, or where can people find you?
They can contact me through you. So maybe you can share my email so they can send questions in, and then you can forward it to me. I'll reply. Then you can send it to everyone. So it becomes an easier way to communicate with the whole group.
Okay, sir. So yeah, once again, thank you again, Dr. Timothy. That was such a wonderful and inspiring and knowledge breaking talk.
Thank you.
So,
Thanks for the opportunity.
yes, thank you too, sir. So, before this webinar comes to a close, I would like to invite everyone who wants to learn more about skills and knowledges, just visit our website at www.esme.ph. We offer a wide range of masterclass courses, those of which you can enroll in based on whatever is relevant to your passion, career, and interests. So once again, this is Dominic from SMPH.ph, and see you again next time. Bye.